A monk in Sri Lanka yelling death threats at a police officer.
This speech was made by Nyanasara.
Another openly advocating violence. And young Buddhists setting the homes of Muslims ablaze in Myanmar. It isn't exactly what most people associate with Buddhism, a faith largely seen as peace-loving, calm, and meditative. But increasingly, this angry, violent side of Buddhism has started to take root in some countries. While it's a minority of people using Buddhism as an excuse for violence, there is still a noticeable rise. To understand why, we first need to know that, like other religions, Buddhism is broken into sects. There are over 500 million Buddhists around the world, with the majority found in Asia. Eastern Buddhism, or Mahayana, is by far the largest group with 360 million followers. Most followers live in China and eastern parts of Asia. Northern Buddhism, also known as Vajrayana, has 18.2 million adherents. This is the form of Buddhism practiced by those that follow the Dalai Lama. It's concentrated mostly in places like Tibet and Bhutan. While Southern Buddhism, or Theravada, has 150 million followers, concentrated in Thailand, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and some in Cambodia and Laos.
Basically, Sri Lanka, Burma, Thailand, you have Theravada Buddhism, which is the majority belief of the people. In Sri Lanka, it's 75% of the population. In Burma, it's 88%, and in Thailand, 93 or so.
It's within the confines of Theravada Buddhism where some monks have found a justification for violence. Dr. Peter Lair has researched the rise of extreme Buddhism and says there are a number of reasons why they feel emboldened to propagate violence.
First, Buddhism is under siege. We need to defend ourselves. Second step, a defensive warfare or defensive violence is acceptable in Buddhism. And third, it's not bad to fight against these people because they're not really humans.
Most experts agree that the roots of Buddhist extremism actually lie in the British colonial past.
During the colonial period in Sri Lanka is that the Brits kind of practiced, as they do in other parts of the world, or as they have in other parts of the world, a kind of divide and rule philosophy.
Buddhist nationalists saw their own way of life and religious beliefs as being under threat from minority communities like Muslims. And that fear boiled over into violence. Violence that's being openly called for by some radicalized monks today. These monks used to take their message to the towns and communities they visited, but in the internet age, that message is reaching a wider audience at lightning speed online.
It used to be DVDs and CDs and all this stuff. Nowadays you go straight to YouTube.
It's happening everywhere Buddhist extremists are active, and groups like Myanmar's Mabata rebranded as the Buddha Dhamma Parahita Foundation after being banned in 2017, and the anti-Islam 969 movement, as well as Sri Lanka's Baju Balasina, are now using social media to organize and galvanize.
I'm in a few of these, Sinhala Buddhist nationalist groups on WhatsApp, and it's quite obvious that whenever there's kind of anti-Muslim rioting going on, addresses get shared in these groups.
It's tough to police these groups till it's too late. And last year, Facebook acknowledged that they didn't do enough to stop violence propagated by extreme Buddhists on their platform in Myanmar.
You can be sure that there are thousands and thousands of people watching that.
The result? Firebombings, beatings, mob attacks, and forced migrations.
We followed a fire engine into this neighborhood, and we went in and houses were on fire. There were hundreds of young Buddhist men on motorbikes riding around the neighborhood with sticks and with swords, singing nationalist songs. The Muslim minority had been driven out.
Journalists have also found themselves targeted and threatened by Buddhist nationalists, particularly in Myanmar, for reporting on the plight of the Rohingya who were driven out of their homes in Rakhine State and forced into refugee camps in Bangladesh.
So that's what happened to me because I started reporting about this from 2013, and I started getting threats on social media.
In Sri Lanka, the same story. Minority communities targeted by Sinhalese Buddhist nationalists.
The main one that's active today is the Buddha Balasena. It was founded in 2012, I believe, and they've been at the forefront of kind of very vibrant anti-Muslim, pro-Sinhala Buddhist activism in the country.
The violence has largely been confined to these two countries for now. But there is concern that it could soon crop up in other parts of Asia where Muslims have a small yet visible minority community.
It is something that we should be worrying. What really surprised me was when I went to one of this rally or gathering of the Buddhist nationalists back in 2016. I saw a few Buddhist nationalists from Thailand participating in Myanmar.
And experts agree it's concerning for the entire region.
What's also very ominous is that Buddhist groups, monk groups are now connecting the dots, basically getting alliances across the country borders.
So what's the answer? To start, moderate Buddhists need to be the stronger voices, but that's not an easy feat. And even banning groups like Mabata in Myanmar and declaring them illegal hasn't stopped the spread of hate.
You have to think twice as a moderate monk to do something against these breaches of hate, because they are well organized.
It's not only other monks that need to speak up, but politicians and world leaders too. Many have been waiting for Nobel Peace Prize winner and Burmese politician Aung San Suu Kyi to take a stand against violence in Myanmar, but so far she hasn't.
There could be a lot more done. Aung San Suu Kyi, for example, has huge support among the population, but it's an issue that she, for political reasons probably, feels very uncomfortable touching.
For now, extreme Buddhist views preaching hate and intolerance remains a concern. Its consequences far-reaching as persecuted minorities seek shelter in other countries around the world, and as nations in the region keep a close eye on Buddhist nationalist intolerance of others, to prevent the spread of violence to other areas in the future.